first medal at the 2022 Beijing Winter Games. The nation's daily COVID-19 tally is above 35,000 again. Authorities shift to more at-home treatment with greater responsibility to individuals. The CSIS identified a secret North Korean missile base. According to the Washington-based think tank, the facility is likely for ICBMs.
Hello, it's good to have you with us. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with some Olympic updates. South Korea earns his first medal of Beijing 2022 with Kim Min-seok winning bronze in speed skating. Figure skater Cha Jun-hwan meanwhile posted his personal best in the short program of the men's single event. Han Sung-woo has a roundup of Team Korea's performances.
It took a while, but South Korea's very first medal at the Beijing Winter Olympics has finally arrived. Kim Min-seok speed skated his way to bronze on Tuesday, racing the men's 1,500 meter with a time of just over a minute and 44 seconds to finish behind two Dutch skaters, Thomas Krol and world record holder Kjeld Nuis, who broke the Olympic record to win gold. Kim's achievement marks the second time an Asian has ever medaled in the event, the first time also his, a bronze on home ice 4 years ago in Pyeongchang. In figure skating, the 2022 Four Continents champion, Korea's very own Cha Jun-hwan, finished fourth in Beijing 2022's men's singles short program, scoring his personal best of 99.51 to smoothly advance onto the free skating competition slated for Thursday. Dancing to the tune of Fate of the Clockmaker by Eternal Eclipse, the 20-year-old flawlessly executed the quadruple salchow, triple lutz and triple loop combination, as well as the triple axel, much to the joy of his coach, Brian Orser. First place went to Nathan Chen, who set a new world record of just under 114 to score much higher than defending and double Olympic champion Yuzuru Hanyu of Japan, who finished 8th. Meanwhile, on snow, Cabbage Boy Lee Sang-ho failed to make it to the semis of the men's parallel giant slalom in snowboarding, an event he won the silver medal in at Pyeongchang 2018. Lee was knocked out in the quarterfinals by the slimmest of margins, losing by just 1/100th of a second to the Russian Olympic Committee's Victor Wilde. Korean short track speed skaters are eyeing Wednesday as a chance to redeem themselves after a succession of controversial disqualifications on Monday, and show the world that when the world talks short track, the world talks South Korea. The men's 1,500 meter event will take place starting with the quarterfinals at 8 p.m., all the way to the final at 10:20. The women's 1,000 meters heats and the semifinals of the women's 3,000 meter relay await as well. All three events are races Korea has claimed gold in several times in the past. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
The head of South Korea's athletic delegation at the Winter Olympics held a press conference has requested a meeting with the IOC chief over a number of questionable decisions by referees. In short track speed skating Monday night, 2 South Koreans were disqualified, in both cases leaving the Chinese skaters to move on to the finals. Min-seok has the full story.
A press conference was held Tuesday morning by the head of South Korea's athletic delegation, Yoon Hong-gun, over last night's refereeing decisions at the short track speed skating event. Yoon said a letter of protest was immediately sent to the International Skating Union and to the International Olympic Committee with a request to meet the IOC president. He stressed that unfair decisions against South Korean athletes should not be made at future international sporting events. The Korea Sport and Olympic Committee is also planning to file an appeal with the Court of Arbitration for Sport to address the issue. Monday night's short track speed skating came as a crushing disappointment. Many South Korean fans found it hard to believe that none of South Korea's 3 semi-finalists reached the final in the men's 1,000-meter race. Hwang Dae-hyun, the world record holder in the event, crossed the finish line first in his semi-final heat. But he was later disqualified for making an illegal late pass that caused contact. Chinese skaters Lon Ju-wei and Lee Won-leung thereby advanced to the finals. In the next heat, Lee Jun-seo finished the race in second place, but he was also penalized for making a lane change that caused contact with Lee Sha-wang of Hungary. And earlier, a third South Korean skater Park Jang-hyuk withdrew from the semifinals after injuring his left hand during his 1,000-meter quarter-final heat. Meanwhile, at the women's 500-meter sprint, Kim Min-seok failed to get past the quarter-finals. With just 2 laps left in the 4.5-lap race, Choi unfortunately slipped and fell without contact. The short-track speed skating event will resume on Wednesday with the men's 1,500-meter and the women's 1,000-meter and 3,000-meter relay. Min-seok, Arirang News.
South Korea confirmed more than 36,000 new COVID-19 cases on Tuesday. The country is also witnessing a growing number of patients being treated at home. To prevent further spread, authorities plan to administer 4th vaccine shots for the elderly. Kim Min-seok brings the updates.
South Korea reported 36,719 new cases of COVID-19 on Tuesday. The daily tally has now been above 30,000 for 4 days in a row. The figure has doubled compared to a week ago, and it has increased more than 4-fold compared to the week before that. The capital Seoul confirmed more than 5,900 cases on Tuesday, up 1,700 cases on week. The percentage of COVID-19 tests coming back positive also increased 2.6 percentage points from Monday to 17.4%. But crucially, the number of critically ill patients continues to fall, currently at 268. Meanwhile, South Korea added 12,000 new home treatment patients over a single-day period. This brings the total to nearly 160,000 patients. More than half of them are located in the greater Seoul area. Health authorities are predicting the daily tally to reach as many as 170,000 by the end of February. And given this scenario, the number of people recovering from home is on pace to hit the 1 million mark by early March. Meanwhile, authorities are planning to administer 4th vaccine doses for people in nursing hospitals and care facilities to prevent cluster and breakthrough infections. For those who haven't yet received a jab, authorities are considering administering the Novavax vaccine. Data has shown that there were a total of 66 cases of cluster infections in January, resulting in nearly 2,500 patients. There were 7 cases of cluster infections in the first week of February. Choi Min-seok, Arirang News.
The number of patients receiving at-home care jumped by more than 12,000 in just one day. In light of the spike, South Korea launched a new system with modified rules on care and isolation. Kim Min-seok explains further.
South Korea has scrapped its thorough 3T system of testing, tracing, and treatment. Instead, starting from this week, the government has brought in a new at-home recovery plan for COVID-19 patients. This new system sorts COVID-19 patients into 2 groups: those who require special care and those who don't. Patients who need special care are those in old age groups or those in their 50s with underlying illnesses. The chronic illnesses that put a patient under the special COVID-19 watch list range from cancer and diabetes to high blood pressure and asthma. The patients under special care will be monitored by their local health center twice a day over the phone. And only those patients will receive an at-home recovery kit, which includes a thermometer, fever-reducing medication, and a pulse oximeter. For the rest of the patients, it's up to themselves to monitor their own condition. If their symptoms suddenly worsen, they can call their local 24-hour COVID-19 hotline to seek care. As of Monday, there are almost 1,200 medical facilities in the country that can test and treat COVID-19. Regular patients can reach out to these facilities for remote treatment. The new approach also eases government monitoring of patient isolation. Previously, the government tracked the movements of all isolated patients through a mobile app, but this tracking app will no longer be used. It's once again up to the patients to isolate responsibly. The isolation period for patients and their cohabitants lasts for a week, and during that time, the cohabitants can step outside to buy essentials. According to health authorities, the medical capacity to treat patients at home has increased 7-fold with this change. Kim Min-seok, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in ordered his cabinet to swiftly devise measures to ensure people in self-isolation can exercise their right to vote. Currently, those who are infected have to self-isolate for 7 days. There's a chance to cast ballots early on March 4th and 5th, but otherwise voting is limited to Election Day on March 9th. In a parliamentary meeting the day before, the KDCA commissioner said in-person voting by infected people could be an option. The issue will be discussed on Wednesday by the National Assembly's Special Committee on Political Reform. Both main parties proposed bills that would ensure everyone can vote, possibly by keeping the polls open longer just for people in isolation. A prominent U.S. think tank found a new secret base in North Korea. According to the CSIS, the facility is likely used to house the regime's long-range ballistic missiles. Bae Eun-ji has the latest.
Washington-based think tank the Center for Strategic and International Studies says it has identified a secret North Korean missile base near its border with China. In a report on Monday U.S. local time, it released satellite images of the Hwaejungni base in Chagangdo province, located just 25 kilometers from the Chinese border. It noted that this is one of around 20 ballistic missile bases that have never been officially declared by North Korea. Citing unnamed sources, the think tank said the facility is likely to house ICBMs, or intercontinental ballistic missiles. It added that should ICBMs not become available in the near term, IRBMs, or intermediate-range ballistic missiles, will likely be deployed. On January 30th, the North claimed that it has successfully launched a type of IRBM missile called Hwasong-12. When fired on a standard trajectory, the missile can fly around 4,500 kilometers, meaning that it can reach the U.S. territory of Guam. To discuss the recent missile launches by North Korea, an official from Seoul's defense ministry told reporters on Tuesday that defense chiefs of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan are likely to hold a trilateral meeting soon. The official said they're still discussing the format of the trilateral meeting and that they're considering both in-person and virtual formats. The senior defense officials from the three countries last met more than 2 years ago in November 2019. As if to warn the North, the U.S. on Wednesday released a photo of an aerial refueling plane in a training session in South Korea. There was speculation that this is a message aimed at the North because the U.S. rarely releases this kind of photo and because it was taken just 3 days after the regime fired its Hwasong-12 missile. The photo, posted on the Defense Visual Information Distribution Service, showed a KC-135 plane in a training session near Osan Air Base in Pyeongtaek City. Meanwhile, North Korea has denied allegations that it has been performing cyber attacks and instead criticized the U.S. for accusing them. The regime's foreign ministry on Tuesday called the U.S. a hacking empire. This comes after Reuters earlier reported that the North stole more than $50 million of cryptocurrency between 2020 and mid-2021, citing a confidential UN report. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
South Korea and India agreed to bolster a special strategic partnership. The agreement follows a phone call between the foreign ministers of the two sides on Tuesday. Seoul's top diplomat also held a phone with his Filipino counterpart. And also they agreed to work on signing an FTA as well as enhancing cooperation in infrastructure and in the defense industry. Also discussed were Korean Peninsula affairs and issues surrounding Myanmar. Japan plans to strongly urge South Korea to lift import ban on food products from Fukushima following Taiwan's decision to make a similar move. When asked at a press conference on Tuesday, Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno said Tokyo has been requesting Seoul and Beijing to lift their respective bans on Japanese fishery products and will continue to do so. Taiwan's ban had been in place since the nuclear disaster in 2011. The removal of the ban is seen as a way for Taiwan to gain support from Japan to join the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. World leaders engage in talks over tensions in Ukraine. During a meeting with the new German leader, President Joe Biden warned of severe economic sanctions on Russia if it invades Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, held talks with his French counterpart and warned of military conflict if Ukraine joins NATO. Yoon Jung-min reports.
Heads of state from the U.S., Europe, and Russia have been holding various talks over growing tensions in Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden met German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Washington on Monday. At a joint news conference, Biden warned of severe economic sanctions on Moscow if Russia invades Ukraine. Those sanctions include shutting down the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
Scholz said Germany has the same approach as the U.S., adding that Russia would pay a very high price if it invades Ukraine. But Biden emphasized the need for a diplomatic solution to the Ukraine conflict, saying diplomacy was the very best way forward for all sides. Their meeting comes as Germany announced it would send up to 350 more troops to Lithuania. On the same day in Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin met his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron. Putin warned of military conflict if Kiev joined NATO, adding there will be no winners.
If Ukraine is in NATO and tries to retake Crimea militarily, European countries will automatically be drawn into military conflict with Russia.
But Putin said Russia will try to find a compromise that would suit everyone, leaving some room for diplomacy. After the meeting, Macron said the coming days will be crucial and will require intensive discussions. The two leaders will speak by phone again after Macron meets with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Tuesday in Kiev. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is set to meet the Russian and Ukrainian presidents each in Moscow and Kiev next week, while the British Foreign and Defense Secretaries are likely to visit Moscow at the end of this week for talks over Ukraine. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The Winter Games provide a stage not only for athletes but brands to spread their names. But for Beijing 2022, firms are keeping a low profile as they try to find a balance between the U.S. and China. Song Yu-jin sheds light on this phenomenon.
With the pandemic making it difficult to watch Beijing 2022 at bars or restaurants, most South Koreans are cheering on Team Korea from home. And to cater for these fans, convenience stores are offering promotions on drinks and snacks. Sports fans' favorite fried chicken will also have special deals during the Olympic period.
We have prepared a variety of gifts and events for those who watch the Olympics at home, as the number is expected to increase on the back of rising COVID-19 cases and the small time difference with Beijing.
However, apart from the food and drink industries, other sectors are lacking the Olympic spirit. On top of the exploding Omicron variant, worsening U.S.-China relations have led to the disappearance of the so-called Olympic marketing. Acknowledging criticism over Beijing's alleged human rights abuses against the Uyghur minority and the repression of democracy in Hong Kong, official IOC sponsors are passive in their use of the Games in advertising. Coca-Cola, a century-long partner of the Games, has reportedly dropped its global Olympic campaign and will only promote the Games in China. South Korea's only official Olympic partner, Samsung Electronics, is sharing the same headache as well. The tech giant had no choice but to scale back its domestic promotions for the Tokyo Games due to soured Korea-Japan relations, and it is now stuck between Beijing and Washington. Experts say firms are in a tricky situation.
Because of the recent movement toward firms having social objectives as well as economic objectives, they do not really want to be linked with human rights abuses that the United States and European countries accuse China of doing.
Walking a tightrope between the U.S. and China, corporate partners need to be careful not to slip on the ice this Winter Olympics. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
Despite the South Korean economy being on the road to recovery, manufacturers are seeing inventories pile up. This is apparently the result of the ongoing global supply chain issues. Kim Jong-un delves deeper into this phenomenon.
According to a report released by the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, the inventories of local manufacturers have risen since the third quarter of last year, particularly in automobile parts, chips, metals, petroleum, and chemical products. A Bank of Korea official explained that while generally inventory levels can drop during an economic recovery as demand increases, the recent pileup was due to a continued blockage in the global supply chain as well as the ongoing pandemic. For example, with an insufficient supply of non-memory semiconductors from Southeast Asia, automobile production has been affected. In turn, the demand for intermediary products manufactured by South Korean firms has also taken a significant hit. In addition, supplies of local petroleum and chemical products have been piling up because of a rise in global raw material prices, not to mention the spread of Omicron, which has caused people to travel much less. The BOK has forecast that relief from the global supply chain issue and the pandemic will help stabilize the current inventory situation. Meanwhile, the increase in energy and raw materials prices has put pressure on the global economy, with fears that oil may hit the $100 per barrel mark. With that, the Hyundai Research Institute forecasts that South Korea's economic growth will fall by 0.3 percentage points if global oil prices do pass that threshold, and inflation will rise by 1.1 percentage points as South Korea relies heavily on crude. As of 2020, South Korea's economic dependence on oil ranked first out of the 37 OECD member countries, standing at 5.7 barrels per $10,000 of the GDP. Kim Chang-ah, Arirang News.
South Korea officially started developing a high-performance liquid-fuel rocket engine, laying the foundations for successful space launches in the future. The Ministry of Science and ICT announced this year's agenda under its Space Challenge to manufacture technology and core components required for a 100-ton liquid-fuel engine. This comes after the country launched Nuri last year. The first homegrown space rocket successfully reached its targeted altitude, but after the third-stage engine burned out sooner than expected, Nuri failed to put a dummy satellite into orbit. The project is also seen as crucial for South Korea's plans for a lunar landing by the year 2030 and its space navigation system, KPS, by the year 2035.
The bitter cold wave has now eased off. Although mornings will be frosty, readings will still be higher than the seasonal norms. Daytime in Seoul will be mild at 6 degrees Celsius tomorrow. Places like Gimhae in Gyeongsangnam-do province will see readings similar to those of early spring. Keep in mind that warmer daytime highs will cause wide temperature gaps. Please be extra careful not to catch a cold. The air is still dry across eastern regions and parts of inland areas. The East Coast and Daegu City have warnings in place. The capital region, Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-do provinces have advisories issued. Because no rain is in the forecast for the time being, dry conditions will only intensify. Morning lows will range from -10 to 3 degrees nationwide. Seoul will start off at -4 degrees. Daytime temperatures will get much warmer. Seoul will get up to 6 degrees. Daejeon 9, Gyeongju and Busan will reach 11 degrees. Temperatures will be on a rising trend from this point on. For the weekend, the capital region will be warm with highs of 9 degrees. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
It's time to wrap things up. As always, thank you for staying with us.